The first time I met my granddaughter, my daughter rested a hand on the little girl's shoulder, smiled politely, and said, "Lily, this is the man who used to be my dad." She didn't hesitate. She didn't even look at me. The words sounded practiced, like she'd carried them inside her for years, waiting for the moment she would finally have to say them out loud. The little girl looked up at me with curious blue eyes. "Hi. Hi, sweetheart." My voice barely worked. For years, I'd imagined meeting my first grandchild. Sometimes I pictured a little boy asking me to throw a baseball, sometimes a little girl running into my arms shouting, "Grandpa." Never this. Never as a stranger. I looked at Emma. My daughter was 38 now. The last time I'd seen her, she was 23, standing on my porch with tears running down her face while I stared at the floor because I couldn't bear to meet her eyes. Now she looked so much like her mother that my chest tightened. Only her eyes were different. Karen's eyes had always welcomed people. Emma's had learned to keep them out. Lily tugged at her sleeve. "Mom? What is it? Does he have a name?" Emma finally looked at me. "This is Jack." Jack. Not Dad. Not Father. Just Jack. I forced a smile. "It's nice to meet you, Lily." She smiled back. "I like your beard." I laughed. "Most people say it makes me look old." "It does." She said it so seriously that I couldn't help smiling. "But old isn't bad." Ryan stepped into the doorway behind them. He was tall, relaxed, and looked exactly like the kind of man every father hopes his daughter marries. He offered his hand. "You must be Jack." "I am. I'm Ryan." His handshake was warm. Not suspicious, not angry, just respectful. For some reason, that hurt even more. This man had spent the last 15 years beside my daughter. He'd celebrated birthdays with her, held her when she cried, and watched Lily grow up. He knew the woman she'd become. I didn't. "You found us," Emma finally said. "I asked around. I figured. I wasn't sure you'd want me here." She let out a quiet breath. "You were right." There wasn't any anger in her voice, only exhaustion. If she'd yelled at me, I would have understood. If she'd slammed the door, I would have deserved it. Instead, she sounded like someone who had simply run out of tears years ago. Ryan glanced at her. "Maybe we should let him come inside." Emma hesitated before stepping aside. 10 minutes. "I'll take 10. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Children's shoes lay by the front door. Family pictures covered the hallway. Vacations, birthdays, Christmas mornings, school concerts, camping trips. A happy life. I wasn't in a single photograph. Nobody had erased me. I'd simply never been there. Lily picked up a sketchbook from the coffee table. "Can I show you my drawings?" Emma hesitated. For a minute. Lily sat across from me and began turning pages. My dog, our camping trip, my school, my piano recital. Every page was another memory. Every memory was one I'd missed. Then she stopped on a drawing of a fire truck. "My teacher says firefighters are heroes. I used to be a firefighter." Her eyes widened. "Really? For 38 years. Were you scared?" "Every single day." She smiled. "My friend Tyler says grown-ups aren't scared." "Tyler hasn't met enough grown-ups." She laughed. For just a moment, the room felt lighter. Then she asked, "So, why don't you live with Grandma?" I swallowed. "Grandma Karen passed away." Her smile faded. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." She nodded quietly before asking another question. "So if your mom's daddy?" She looked at Emma. "Why have I never met you?" The room went silent. Emma closed her eyes for a moment but said nothing. She looked at me instead, waiting. I could have blamed work, distance, life. Instead, I took a slow breath, because I stayed away for a very long time. Lily frowned. Why? The question I'd spent 15 years avoiding was suddenly sitting in front of me. Why hadn't I called? Why hadn't I come back? Why hadn't I been there when my daughter needed me? I searched for words an 8-year-old could understand. I forgot something important. What? I looked at Emma. I forgot that people you love still need you, even when your own heart is broken. For the first time, something changed in Emma's face. Not forgiveness, not kindness, recognition. Like she'd expected another excuse but heard the truth instead. Lily closed her sketchbook. Then she asked one last question. "If he used to be your dad," she looked at Emma, "what is he now?" Neither of us answered. Because standing in my daughter's living room after 15 years apart, I realized I honestly didn't know. I drove back to my hotel without turning on the radio. The silence felt appropriate. On the drive there, I'd prepared myself for anger. A slammed door, a shouting match, Maybe even being told to leave and never come back. I hadn't prepared for 10 quiet minutes. Or for the little girl who had smiled at me without knowing who I really was. Inside the hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed and reached into my jacket pocket. Karen's wedding ring rested inside a small leather pouch I'd carried for 15 years. The gold had lost its shine. She never cared. Karen used to say she'd rather spend money on camping trips than jewelry because memories lasted longer than diamonds. I smiled. Then I remembered something. Memories only matter if someone is there to make them with you. Karen had been gone for 15 years. People always told me grief would get easier. They were only half right. It stopped screaming. But it never stopped talking. Some mornings it was just a whisper. Then I'd smell her perfume on a stranger or hear an old song on the grocery store speakers, and suddenly she'd be standing beside me again. I looked down at the ring. I found her today. I whispered. I found Emma. The room stayed silent. Karen had always believed I'd go back. Even after Emma stopped answering my calls. Even after birthday cards came back unopened. She never stopped believing our family could be repaired. I did. That was the difference between us. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hello? Jack. It was Ryan. I hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then he said something I wasn't ready to hear. Emma cried after you left. I closed my eyes. I never wanted to hurt her again. You didn't. His voice stayed calm. You reminded her. Of what? That she'd spent years hoping today would happen. My throat tightened. I thought she hated me. That would have been easier. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Ryan continued. Can I tell you something she'd probably never tell you herself? Please. The first Father's Day after Lily was born, Emma bought a card. A card. For you. I stared at the carpet. She never sent one. I know. I found it in a drawer a year later. What did it say? I never opened it. He paused. But I remember the envelope. I waited. It said, to Dad if he ever comes back. I covered my face with one hand. For years I'd convinced myself she'd moved on. That she'd stopped needing me. Instead, she'd waited. Until waiting hurt too much. Ryan let the silence sit between us. Then he asked, why now? I looked at Karen's ring. Because I finally ran out of excuses. When Karen died, I buried myself in work. After I retired, there wasn't any work left to hide behind. Ryan didn't interrupt. I don't expect Emma to forgive me. I know. I don't even expect her to call me Dad again. I know. I just wanted her to know. My voice cracked, that I never stopped loving her. Ryan answered so quietly I almost missed it. Love wasn't what she questioned. I froze. Then what was? Whether you loved her enough to stay. After we hung up, I barely slept. I kept thinking about that unopened Father's Day card. Not because Emma had written it. Because she believed, even then, that I might still come back. The next morning I started the drive home. About an hour outside the city, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. Thank you for telling Lily the truth. No name. None was needed. I typed 3 different replies. Thank you for letting me meet her. Delete. I'm sorry. Delete. Nothing felt big enough to cover 15 years. I locked the phone without sending anything. A minute later, another message appeared. Lily wants to know if firefighters really slide down poles. For the first time in 15 years. My daughter had texted me twice in one morning. I stared at Emma's last text for several minutes before answering. Only in old fire stations, most of us use the stairs. They're safer. I almost added one more sentence. Tell Lily I said hello. I deleted it. That felt like asking for something I hadn't earned. A moment later, another message appeared. She says that's disappointing. I laughed. Not loudly, just enough to surprise myself. I replied, tell her the trucks are still pretty cool. Her answer came almost immediately. She already thinks so. That was all. But it was enough to make the drive home feel a little shorter. 3 days passed without another message. I kept checking my phone anyway. Most of the time it was nothing important. A weather alert. A pharmacy reminder. Life had a strange habit of moving forward while I stayed stuck in the past. On the 4th afternoon, I was trimming the hedges when my neighbor Bill walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. You look awful. Thanks. I mean it. I know. He handed me a cup. You finally found your daughter? I nodded. I met my granddaughter too. Bill smiled. That's good. She doesn't know I'm her grandfather. His smile disappeared. What happened? My daughter introduced me as the man who used to be my dad. Bill looked at me for a long moment. I don't know what to say. Neither did I. We stood there quietly. Bill had lived next door for almost 20 years. He'd watched Karen get sick. He'd stood beside me at her funeral. Yet there were things I'd never told him. I missed Emma's wedding. He frowned. I didn't know that. I missed Lily's birth too. You regret it? Every day. Bill nodded. My oldest son didn't speak to me for 5 years. I looked at him in surprise. You never mentioned that. I was ashamed. What happened? I kept telling him how wrong he was. And one day I realized I cared more about being right than getting my son back. He smiled sadly. So I apologized? You explained yourself? No. You defended yourself? No. I simply said I was sorry. He took another sip of coffee. Nobody hears an apology if it's followed by the word but. After Bill went home, those words stayed with me. I thought about every apology I'd imagined over the years. I'm sorry, but I was grieving. I'm sorry, but I didn't know how to come back. Every one of them had an excuse attached. None of them focused on Emma. That night I opened the cedar chest Karen had always kept in our bedroom. Inside were photo albums, report cards, birthday cards, and little pieces of our life together. Karen never threw memories away. I found one album labeled Emma, high school. As I turned the pages, I noticed something. Karen was in almost every picture. I wasn't. At first I told myself I must have been holding the camera. Then I found a note tucked beside one photo. Jack got called into work. Emma said she understood. Another page. Another note. Night shift again. Another. She kept looking toward the back doors. I slowly closed the album. For years I'd remembered myself as a busy father. Now I wondered if I'd simply remembered the man I wanted to be. My phone buzzed. Emma. Not a text, a picture. Lily sat at the kitchen table drawing a fire truck. Across the top she'd written, for Jack. There wasn't a single word underneath, no explanation, no message. I stared at the picture until my eyes blurred. For the first time in years, someone in my family had thought about me when I wasn't there. The next morning, I printed Lily's drawing. Most people would have left it on their phone. I wanted something I could hold. The paper came out warm from the printer, and I pinned it to my refrigerator with an old magnet Karen had bought during a trip to Maine. For a long time, I simply looked at it. For Jack, a few weeks earlier, hearing my own name instead of Dad would have broken me. Now it felt different. Trust didn't begin with titles. It began with showing up. So I waited. I didn't call Emma. I didn't send another message. If she wanted me in her life, she'd let me know. If she didn't, I'd respect that. Then, one Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Emma. I answered before the second ring. Hi. She sounded nervous. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I looked around my quiet kitchen. Not at all. I actually need a favor. A favor. I never expected to hear those words. Lily has a family history project. I listened. She has to interview someone from an older generation. Ryan's parents are traveling, and she keeps asking questions I can't answer. What kind of questions? What was your first job? What was school like? What did Grandma laugh at? The last question caught me off guard. You don't have to come, Emma said quietly, but she really wants to ask you herself. I'd like that. She hesitated. Saturday? I'll be there. Saturday arrived with clear blue skies. I parked outside 10 minutes early and waited until exactly 2 o'clock before walking to the front door. This time, Ryan answered. Come on in. As I stepped inside, he smiled. It's good to see my father-in-law. The words stopped me for a second. He'd said them so naturally, like I still belonged somewhere. Before I could answer, footsteps thundered down the stairs. Jack. Lily ran toward me carrying a notebook. I made questions. How many? 23. I laughed. That's a lot. I wanted 24, but Mom said one was rude. She led me to the dining room table and opened the notebook. Question 1. I'm ready. What was your favorite food when you were my age? Peanut butter sandwiches. She wrote it down. What did you want to be before you became a firefighter? No one's asked me that in years. I smiled. A history teacher. Emma looked up from the kitchen. You wanted to teach? I almost did. I never knew. There are a lot of things you never knew. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Neither of us said anything for a moment. Lily turned another page. What made Grandma happiest? I didn't have to think long. Making people feel like they belonged. She frowned. What does that mean? If someone walked into our house for the first time, your grandma treated them like family before they even sat down. Lily smiled. I would have liked her. You would have loved her. The room fell quiet. Even Emma stopped what she was doing. Then Lily looked at the last question in her notebook. She hesitated. If Grandma was so wonderful, she looked straight at me. Why did you stop being happy after she died instead of staying with Mom? Nobody spoke. Lily's question stayed in the room long after she'd asked it. I looked at Emma. She wasn't looking at me. She was waiting to hear whether I'd tell the truth. For the first time in years, I did. I made a mistake. Lily frowned. A really big one. The biggest of my life. When Grandma died, I thought I'd lost the only person who could keep me standing. But Mom was still here. She was. Then why didn't you stay? I lowered my eyes. Because I confused heartbreak with being alone. She looked puzzled. I don't understand. I didn't either. I folded my hands together. I thought if I worked harder, stayed busier, and kept fixing things around the house, the pain would get smaller. Did it? No. What happened? I stopped choosing anything. The room fell silent. I still went to work. I still paid bills. I still woke up every morning. I looked at Emma. But I stopped being a father. Lily thought about that. So, you weren't trying to leave Mom? No. I just kept making choices that looked exactly like leaving. Emma finally spoke. That's how it felt. Her voice was calm. I kept waiting for him to come back. She smiled sadly. After every birthday, I thought maybe next year. After graduation, maybe now. After I got engaged, surely now. She shook her head. When he missed my wedding, she stopped for a moment. I realized I was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Every word landed harder than the one before. I never stopped loving him, she continued. I just stopped believing he wanted the job anymore. I couldn't argue. She was right. Love isn't measured by what you feel. It's measured by where you are. And I wasn't there. Emma looked at me for the first time since she'd started speaking. Do you remember what Mom used to say every New Year's Eve? I smiled before I realized it. No family starts the year keeping score. She blinked. You remember. I remember everything. I laughed quietly. I remember the time you dyed our dog blue, because you thought he looked lonely. Lily burst into laughter. You did what? Ha! Emma covered her face. I was 6. The poor dog looked like a blueberry for a week. Even Ryan laughed from the kitchen. For the first time since I'd come back into their lives, all 4 of us were laughing together. It only lasted a few seconds. But it felt like hope. Emma looked at me again. If you remembered all those things. Her smile faded. Why wasn't remembering enough? I took a slow breath. Because remembering isn't the same as being there. She nodded. Slowly. Almost like she'd been waiting years to hear those words. Lily suddenly climbed down from her chair. I'll be right back. She ran upstairs before anyone could ask why. Ryan stepped outside to answer a phone call, leaving Emma and me alone. I don't expect you to forgive me, I said quietly. I know. I don't expect you to call me Dad. I know. I only want the chance to stop being the man who used to be. Emma looked toward an old family picture hanging on the wall. I don't know if I can give you that. Before I could answer, Lily came running back downstairs holding a folded sheet of paper. I changed my family tree. She handed it to me. I unfolded it carefully. At the bottom were Emma, Ryan, and Lily. Above them she'd drawn me. Next to my stick figure she'd crossed out one word, Jack. Above it, in careful handwriting she'd written another, Grandpa. I stared at the paper until the word Grandpa began to blur. I don't deserve this yet, I said quietly. Lily smiled. Maybe not. She shrugged. But you keep coming. I folded the family tree carefully and slipped it into my jacket pocket. I'll take good care of it. I know. That simple answer stayed with me all the way home. Over the next month, Saturdays became part of my life again. I never invited myself over. If Emma called, I came. If she didn't, I stayed home. Sometimes Lily wanted help with homework. Sometimes she wanted stories about the fire station. Sometimes we just sat on the porch eating ice cream. Little by little, I stopped feeling like a visitor. One afternoon, Ryan joined me in the backyard while Lily practiced piano inside. You've changed, he said. I've had to. He nodded. You never ask Emma when she'll forgive you. I don't think forgiveness is something I get to request. He smiled. You know why she's letting you back in? I shook my head. Because you come expecting nothing. Those words meant more than he probably realized. For years, I'd wanted another chance. Now I simply wanted to deserve the one I'd already been given. A few weeks later, Lily handed me a folded invitation covered in colorful stickers. My school is having Grandparents' Day. I opened it. Across the bottom, she'd written 3 careful words. Please come, Grandpa. I looked at Emma. Are you sure? She met my eyes. If I wasn't, I would have told her no. The school gym was filled with folding chairs, balloons, and children proudly introducing grandparents to their teachers. For a moment, I stood near the entrance, wondering if I really belonged there. Then I heard a familiar voice. Grandpa. Lily ran across the room and wrapped both arms around me. This time she didn't hesitate. Neither did I. She spent the morning introducing me to everyone we met. This is my grandpa. Every time she said it, I felt grateful. And every time I promised myself I'd keep earning it. After the program ended, families gathered outside. Emma stood beneath a large oak tree watching Lily play. I walked over. She had a good day. Emma nodded. So did you. For a while we simply stood there. Then she reached into her purse. I found something. She handed me a faded white envelope. Across the front were words I'd never seen before. To Dad, if he ever comes back. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a short message. I don't know if you're ever coming home, but if you do, I'll still call you Dad. Love, Emma. I couldn't hold back the tears. I'm sorry. The words barely came out. I know, Emma said. I nodded. I spent years trying to think of an apology big enough. I looked down at the card, but I stopped. Bill's voice echoed in my mind. Nobody hears an apology if it's followed by the word but. I smiled sadly. There it is again. Emma looked at me. What? I almost explained myself. I folded the card and placed it beside Lily's family tree inside my jacket. I'm simply sorry. Nothing more. No excuses. No defense. Just the truth. Emma wiped away a tear. Then, almost in a whisper, she said the words I'd been hoping to hear without ever expecting them. I missed my dad. My chest tightened. I missed my daughter every single day. She nodded. I can't promise everything will be the way it was. I don't want that. We can't get those years back. I know. Another quiet moment passed between us. Then Lily ran over laughing and slipped one hand into mine and the other into Emma's. Come on. She grinned up at us. Now we look like a family. Emma looked at me. The distance that had lived in her eyes for 15 years was finally gone. She smiled. A small smile. A real one. Let's go, Dad. We walked toward the parking lot together. The past hadn't disappeared. Some scars never do. But for the first time since Karen died, I wasn't carrying my family as a memory. I was walking beside them, and I was no longer the man who used to be her dad. I was simply Dad.